The narrative begins by presenting a report made in 1972, where residents of a coastal region of Norway to the southwest, in the Sognefjorden Strait, claim to have witnessed something strange and colossal in the sea, whose shadow appeared to move rapidly and caused waves that rocked the vessel. However, it was not possible to see the real form of such a creature, but the certainty was that it exists and was more than 200 meters long. After reports from the population, the Navy was sent to inspect the Norwegian Sea, but they believed it to be only a Soviet submarine. However, the vast maritime area was a challenge to confirm this, leaving doubt about the reality of the facts for the people. In the present, two young men are seen playing on a jet ski in the Sognefjorden Strait, a region of large valleys now covered by seawater. They do not notice, but a colossal gray shadow passes beneath them at the bottom of the water. The young men continue having fun and perform maneuvers on the water. They begin to move in a circle, creating a funnel in the water. Suddenly, the unknown creature approaches from below and pulls the two boys to their deaths. In another location, Diana is introduced, a marine biologist who checks maritime mapping equipment delivered by a diver from her team. In the audio given to her, it is possible to hear water sounds and what happens at the bottom of the ecosystem in a certain coastal location of the sea. At that moment, she receives a call from her colleague Larson from the Marine Institute. She tells him that she is busy and needs to return to the mapping site, as the sound graphs indicate unusual changes. However, Larson says he needs her, as she is the most qualified for the mapping work. He asks her to go to the east coast, in the region of Vangsnes. Upon hearing where she is going, Diana says she does not like revisiting the place, for reasons still unknown. However, knowing it is for work, she feels obligated to go. Larson says he will send a video that will make her rethink her limitations. While she is inside the car, in the parking lot, the video arrives on her phone. The images show thousands of fish out of the water, as if they deliberately left their habitat, a reason unknown to the biologist. Wanting to understand what happened, Diana heads to the location indicated by her colleague. In the next scene, she is seen reflecting on whether she should continue. She gets out of the vehicle and calls Eric, her old acquaintance, but he does not answer. Meanwhile, a small aircraft is seen flying over a stretch of the Norwegian Sea Fjord Valley, a place that can reach a depth of 1.5 kilometers. This place is also known for having a fish farm, a large structure that functions as a breeding facility. For the Asian investor, it will be a big step for his company that raises expensive salmon. The aircraft lands, and the investor's team arrives at the floating and technological complex of Western Salmon, a salmon farming site built using compacted modules from old warships at its base. The boss, Tommy, introduces the team to the investor, Jin Jong, Eric, the aquaculture engineer, and Jorg, a monitoring technician, who soon shows a demonstration video of what they do. A pest usually attacks schools of salmon and kills the hosts within hours. However, the sonic lash technology is proof that their solution to this pest is effective. These small creatures receive a calibrated and constant sound wave from the device, which causes the pest to be removed from the host. The proposal is good, but for one of Jin Jong's assistants, it is not. He questions the fact that he has heard the technology brings a small problem, where it is claimed that it can slow the growth of the fish and even stress them, thus making their flesh rigid and unsuitable for consumption. However, Eric corrects the statement, saying that the right frequency brings health and well-being to the salmon, and that is what is programmed into the devices. He says that if the sound frequency is low, it is harmful, and if it is too high, it can affect the entire ecosystem of the region. This worries the investor. However, Eric reassures him, stating that the software is refined and highly reliable in executing its programming and adapts to what happens with the salmon. Returning to Diana, she arrives in the town of Vangsnes, where people are happy, as they live in a beautiful tourist location where fun, peace, and safety prevail. Walking along the pier, the biologist reunites with an old friend, the police officer Henriette. By coincidence, she reunites with Tommy after 7 years, and also with Henriette's now teenage daughter, Maria. The young girl only greets her, saying she has an urgent commitment. She gets into a van and leaves with other young people, who take a boat to sail. Then the police officer takes her to a location to carry out an inspection of her professional area. Diana comes across a large fishing net, damaged, but what intrigues them is that it was not only noticed there, as it has occurred in other places. The scene then shifts to Maria's group, who are on one of the valley's edges, the same location as the video Diana saw. They are Roger and Peter. They are part of a group of people who want to shut down the complex, as they disagree with the negative effects that Western salmon causes on the ecosystem of the region. Inside the van, they question whether they should act on the plan, but Maria advises them to wait for Diana's actions, stating that she will do what is best, knowing that if the complex is responsible for the uncontrolled fish deaths, Diana will act to shut down the facility. Returning to the Western Salmon complex, Eric instructs George to turn on the equipment. Meanwhile, Diana approaches the installation with her old friend Olav, a fisherman and boat captain. He states that she should shut down the complex, as that is what is causing thousands of fish deaths in the region. Finally, she enters the complex to carry out the inspection, and soon meets Eric, who shows surprise upon seeing her there. Upon saying that she is there to perform an inspection instructed by the Marine Institute, Eric asks George to show the complex to the visitor. It is noticeable that Diana and Eric have or once had close ties, but something separated them, causing an awkward reunion. George presents the complex and states that the installation can be considered unsinkable due to the parts of warships used in its construction, having a thickness of 40 millimeters. She is taken to the room where she will stay and spends the night there. The next day, she is taken by boat to carry out her inspections and listen to the sounds of the depths. Eric is with her, and they talk briefly. However, their time is short, as a large shadow appears beneath them, something colossal that moves slowly in the water, although they believe it is just a large school of fish. On a road by the sea, 100 crabs emerge from the water, as if fleeing from something. Hours later, Diana is seen visiting Tommy's house. She has a moment with Maria, who is happy when Diana congratulates her on the boat she received as a gift from her father. Then they talk about the video recorded by Maria, at which point the young girl questions the purpose of her visit there. Maria believes this is the fault of the complex and hopes Diana will make an effort to shut down the facility. Even with the young girl's request, the biologist states that she only makes reports and that someone else decides the fate of the installation. These words leave Maria frustrated and doubtful of the biologist's actions. Back at the complex, Diana checks the team's data on the salmon and discovers that the deaths are constant, something that cannot be attributed to the pest, as it is decreasing. Then she asks for the data from the sonic lice equipment, which worries Georg. Next, she goes to inspect the cages of the complex. In another submerged location, Tommy is giving a lecture about his work to new investors. At one moment, Eric calls him, stating that Diana is inspecting them, and that he is concerned something negative may be discovered. Tommy asks him to handle any unforeseen issue and hangs up. Turning his attention back to the investors, he is pleased when Jinjong shows interest in more complexes along the vast Norwegian sea strait. Meanwhile, Diana continues inspecting the salmon, being closely observed by Eric. While analyzing the sonic lice data, she observes the consequences of sound frequencies on a fish's heart. She discovers that above a certain limit, the organ collapses and explodes, a consequence that makes her reflect on the problem. Below, underwater, something quickly collides with the equipment deliberately, and a signal is sent to Georg in the system. He alerts Eric that he will check the device shortly. Diana is nearby and helps him. At that moment, a knocking sound at the base of the complex draws their attention, but it does not worry them enough to consider it a danger. When Eric checks the inside of the equipment, he finds something organic and unknown to them. Diana immediately takes it to the laboratory for research. She discovers it is an unknown species, but with characteristics of an organism that exists in deep waters and has phosphorescent slime. The two question why the species is so close to the surface, which leaves them perplexed. Eric notices a drop of the creature's liquid on Diana's face, and she immediately goes to clean herself, fearing an infection. At some point along the valley's edges, the police officer finds the jet ski of the missing young men and believes they drowned. A few hours later, back at the complex, George receives a signal of behavioral changes in the salmon at another point, and his partner notices that something problematic is happening, observing that the fish are acting brutally, appearing to be killing one another. The team decides to dive to check more closely, and Diana is invited to go with them. The biologist volunteers to go first and has a terrible encounter. After scaring away a small school of fish, she comes across one of the bodies of the young men attacked days earlier. Immediately, Henriette is called to be informed of the situation. Diana presents the slime present on the body, with luminescent properties. The police officer questions whether the fish farm has anything to do with the material, but Diana states that the slime comes from a large animal that lives in the depths. The biologist also explains that several marine animals produce such substances when they feel threatened by a predator or when they produce their eggs. Back at her residence, the police officer talks with her husband Tommy, and he says that the investors accepted their proposal and confirmed participation in the project, boosting Western Salmon tenfold. Night begins, and work at the complex does not stop. When Eric hears a loud noise outside, he goes to check and finds in one of the cages the fish agitated for a moment. Inside Diana's room, it is seen that she cannot sleep and is startled when she finds a strange organism moving across her stomach. She quickly gets out of bed, but realizes it was just a hallucination. The next day, at a certain edge of the valley strait, a group of canoeing practitioners tests their skills with canoes. Without noticing, what appears to be several tentacles begins to emerge near the surface. Suddenly, when one of the participants goes to perform a flip underwater, she and her canoe are dragged into the depths. The others do not understand at first, but soon realize it is an attack. Then a colossal tentacle, similar to that of an octopus, attacks the canoeists. A few minutes later, the water remains calm, as if nothing had happened. Away from there, Diana continues listening to what is happening at the bottom of those waters. Unexpectedly, a deep sound like a roar echoes in her headphones. Observing which buoy the sound came from, the biologist goes to the location and takes the device to check it. Confused by hearing the sound, the biologist questions her old friend Olav about the rumors he told when he was still a child to the news at the time. He says that he witnessed, through the fog in the strait, the waters moving as if something stirred them from below. Within the fog, he saw only a large, indescribable shadow, but it disappeared shortly afterward. Diana becomes even more intrigued, wondering whether she can believe in the existence of such a colossal creature. Near the city's pier, the police officer is called again, and when she arrives at the location, she sees the canoes thrown on the shore, and unfortunately, in one of them is half the body of one of the participants. The crime is confusing and shocking for Henriette, but she also observes circular marks on the canoes. At another point, while sailing on a tourist trip, some people almost suffer an accident when they collide with something large that looks like a rock that emerged out of nowhere. It is noticeable that it is something alive, and that it is trying to rid itself of parasites on its body. At the complex, Diana realizes that the sounds and frequencies can reach the maximum depth of the valley, and tells Eric that it is not safe to continue using the device. She says that the emitted frequency was heard almost 2 kilometers from that location, something that for Eric is unlikely, as he knows he programmed the device with a signal blocker to emit low frequencies only where they are. She tells the technician that his device is wrong and harms the ecosystem. Confused and curious to know the truth, Eric goes to the monitoring cabin and asks George to check the data. He calls his boss Tommy and confronts him for having turned off the sonic lice signal blockers, stating that the entire valley and ecosystem could be destroyed because of it. Tommy, trying to justify himself, accuses Diana of making false claims just to make Eric follow her instructions and shut down the project. In his words, Tommy asks him to leave things as they are, aiming for results so that his investors will support even more and consequently make them rich. Once again, he hangs up, which leaves Eric furious. In the submerged location, Tommy prepares documents when the body of the other young man approaches the aquarium glass, leaving everyone shocked by the scene. In the laboratory, Diana discovers more about the pest and tells her colleagues that the organism she found was only a parasite, implying that its host must be something large. Fearing that the device is altering the ecosystem, Eric says he will turn off the sonic lice, but George, agreeing with Tommy's idea, says he will not allow it. At the pier where children play in the water, authorities ask bathers to get out of the water and only return under a second order, a request resulting from the various fatal incidents. Tommy arrives at his facility and is confronted by Diana, who states that the sonic lice frequencies are disturbing the entire ecosystem of the region, affecting not only animals that live near the surface, but also reaching the limits of the depths. Even after showing the harm caused by the sound equipment, Tommy refuses to deactivate his source of wealth. Meanwhile, stealthily approaching the complex, Maria's group, equipped with diving suits, approaches the cages to finally destroy the sonic lice equipment. Peter prepares and dives, and the others wait for his return. Underwater, he tries to break the cables to destroy the equipment, but at that moment a parasite appears and attacks him. Suddenly, he emerges asking for rescue from his friends, but soon the water turns red and he is dragged to the bottom. Maria screams for help, and Eric observes through binoculars that they have visitors nearby. Seeing that it is his daughter Maria, Tommy goes to meet her, at which moment something collides with the base of the complex. The older ones go to rescue the younger ones, who are in panic after witnessing the horrific scene. New impacts continue to happen, as the creature tries to pull the complex downward by dragging the anchor. The system begins to signal danger, and George tries to correct any errors. Outside, Diana is seen paralyzed. She watches the entire valley begin to be filled with a dense fog, and a deep rumble echoes throughout the place. It is not only the fog that appears over the waters. Soon, she is surprised to see a large tentacle rising upward, which strikes part of the complex and nearly crushes the biologist. As if sensing something, the colossal tentacle passes over Diana before returning to the depths. She then runs inside and tells the others that the creature is enormous and carries hundreds of mutant parasites, which begin to launch themselves onto the complex in search of a new host. The moment is tense, and the group tries to remain silent so as not to draw attention. Suddenly, a parasite falls from the air vent and positions itself in front of Diana. Frightened, Roger runs to seek safety. Afraid, but at the same time brave, Maria crushes the parasitic pest. In the control cabin, George and Eric realize that the entire complex is moving from its place, as if something is dragging it. While Eric goes to get the others, George witnesses the colossal tentacle colliding with the cabin, and obviously terrified, he runs away from the place. In the corridors of the complex, the group is surprised by one of the tentacles, which tears off a hatch and then grabs Maria, taking her away. The scene terrifies Diana, who cannot believe her friend has been captured. But they do not have time to attempt a rescue, as more tentacles are surrounding the complex and have already entered the installation, seeking more victims. The team manages to escape to another compartment, while Tommy screams for his daughter. Suddenly, the creature appears, forcing the man to confront it. However, the monster returns and brings the young woman back to the complex for some unknown reason. Her father approaches and comforts her, but the creature continues to whip anything around it, causing both of them to fall into the water. Unfortunately, Tommy is grabbed and dragged to the bottom. Recognized as prey by the colossal creature, he is soon devoured. In another detached compartment, George comes across the injured Roger. As he approaches him, he discovers that the young man is being used as a host by a parasite, which is consuming him to death. Frightened, George tries to move away, but the pest approaches. George manages to turn the parasite, but as he gets closer to see its monstrous form, the creature launches a jet of dark slime onto his face. Screaming in pain, George ends up attracting the attention of the colossal monster, which, using its tentacles, drags the small container to the bottom of the valley. Returning to Diana, she is surrounded by one of the creature's monstrous arms and is forced into the air duct. However, as if sensing prey with its suction cups, it follows the biologist. Fortunately, Diana manages to enter another compartment, freeing herself momentarily. It does not take long for the creature to approach again, using its living tentacles to search for prey. Diana tries to move away slowly, but her movements attract the monster. What seems to be a tongue touches her coat, forcing her to remove it. However, this is not enough to satisfy the monster, which soon wraps around the biologist's neck again. At that moment, Eric approaches stealthily and grabs an axe to save his colleague. However, realizing that it will not cause significant damage, she asks her friend not to attack. Nevertheless, fearing for Diana's safety, Eric steps back and starts a boat engine. The noise attracts the creature, which, while trying to attack the engine, ends up losing parts of its tentacle. Meanwhile, the police officer Henriette, sweeping an area of the valley, finds a private boat, and in this scenario, the vessel is empty, with bloodstains and a parasite that soon returns to the water. In the submerged aquarium, the cleaner organizes the place when she hears something hitting the glass. She comes across another of those monstrous parasites. The pest breaks the glass and floods the place. Then, returning to the complex, the octopus-like creature is destroying the place with its monstrous strength. In the control cabin, Diana and Eric hear the system asking to reduce the sonic lice frequencies, but the developer himself is unable to stop the device. As a last solution, Diana uses the axe and destroys the control panel, which unexpectedly causes the monster's attack to cease. The two observe the surrounding scene and see the young Maria unconscious in the water. Quickly, Diana runs to rescue her, while Eric fires a flare into the air, a signal seen by the police officer Henriette. With the brightness of the light, the remaining group at the complex observes the immense size of the marine creature. The monster still shows hostility and returns to the depths, but Diana knows that another turbulent and destructive moment may come. She turns to Eric to reprogram the remaining devices, knowing the danger of the high frequencies caused by the sonic lease. She imagines that the overload will turn it into a time bomb capable of destroying the complex, but also doing what is necessary to stop the creature. Suddenly, a parasite approaches where Maria is resting. Weak, she has no strength to react, but fortunately, to her luck, her mother bursts through the door and shoots that marine pest. Having a plan, Diana asks Eric to place the device inside the boat and moves away from the installation without his consent. The biologist heads to a wide area of the valley, activates the sound frequency, and then throws the device to the bottom of the water, thus drawing the monster's attention. The morning approaches, and the fog still covers the valley. Suddenly, the creature emerges, collides with the boat, and knocks Diana into the water. A tentacle grabs the biologist, who, with little she can do, simply admires such a magnificent creature. However, the reprogrammed device reaches the limit of its frequencies, an occasion that causes a powerful sound pulse and destroys the monster's heart, just as it did with the fish's heart. Unfortunately, Diana's air runs out, and her strength to reach the surface fades. A few minutes later, Eric, Maria, and Henriette approach the location and search for their friend. Suddenly, Olav calls them from within the fog and shows that he managed to rescue Diana. Unfortunately, the reunion is sad, as the biologist did not survive the dive, thus giving her life to accomplish the feat that would save that entire region. However, the end of the creature's species did not come, as it, somewhere in the depths of the Norwegian Sea, left one of its eggs, which will soon bring terror again.